Good morning. Oh, that's pretty good. Y'all drank all the coffee, right? Okay, sounded like it. Good morning, everyone. My name is Denise Rhymes, and I have the honor and privilege of serving this congregation as president of the board of directors. And I welcome you to this amazing Sunday morning. Now, I know that we have a lot of different beliefs about things in nature and how they come to be. So whoever we need to thank, or whoever you need to thank for this glorious day, please write that note. We are delighted for those of you who are visiting us for the first or the second or the third time. This is not a normal Sunday. Footnote to that statement, there are no normal Sundays here. Every Sunday is a little bit different, and there's something new to learn and something new to experience every single week. We are very delighted that you have joined us for what is either the second or third or 11th homecoming. The pandemic got all of our counting a little bit off, but we are delighted to welcome all of you and hope that you will remain with us afterwards to enjoy a community meal out in the courtyard. So welcome to this beautiful, beautiful Sunday morning. We are honored and privileged to have you with us.
Good morning. It's so good to see so many friendly faces this morning on this beautiful fall morning. And welcome to homecoming. First time we're back in person since 2019 or 1919. Anyway, so welcome back. I am the Reverend Sherman Z. Logan, Jr., and I'm blessed and privileged to serve this wonderful congregation as your acting senior minister. And I'd like to welcome all of you who are here with us this morning to celebrate our homecoming service, those who are with us in the Great Hall and those who are visiting virtually. Homecoming is a day of celebration, reunion, reconnection, and remembrance. And it's also a day that we reflect on what it means to be back together in community, a day to reflect the matter of love that we have for each other, the day to be back home. And I hope that everyone in this room today and those who are joining virtually who cannot be with us this morning feel that you belong here and this is your home. And we hope that you feel while you're in this place at this time doing this worship service, you're free from the outside distraction and be with one and family. With love in our hearts, the spirit of welcome, we share this special day. Welcome home. Now I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all who are visiting us this morning in person or virtually. We are glad that you're here with us this morning, and this day is special because of your presence. And we also have with us this morning some very special guests. From the Commonwealth of Virginia, Delegate Betsy Carr. State Senator Ghazala Hashmi is on the way, but she'll be with us in a couple of minutes. From our UU staff, Southern Region Congregational Life Specialist and our affiliated community minister, the Reverend Tyler Coles. And last but no way least, the president of our Unitarian Universalist Association, the Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick-Gray. As president of our association, Reverend Susan is responsible for administering staff and programs and acting as the primary spokesperson and minister at large for more than our 1,000 congregation. I wish we had 100,000 congregations. And during her tenure, she led the association efforts in dismantling system of white supremacy and other forms of oppression. She represented the UUA in the 2017 Charlottesville protests against white nationalists. She worked with Reverend William Barber and the Poor People Campaign on issues of poverty that led our association efforts to expand voters' rights. And she is also a national recognized voice for immigration rights and justice. And while she was serving as the lead minister of our Phoenix, Arizona congregation, she played a critical role in the long-term campaign to end the constitutional violations of the Maricopa County Sheriff, Joe Apollo. And because of her efforts, Joe had to go. And on a personal note, I've worked closely with Reverend Susan for the past 4 years as a member of the UUA Board of Trustees, and I found her to be a person of conviction, integrity, and faith, and she has done an extraordinary job at leading our faith through some of the most turbulent times in our association and our nation. And in my humble opinion, our Unitarian Universalist faith is much stronger because of her steady leadership. So I'm honored to have Reverend Susan as a ministry partner, a colleague, and most importantly, a friend. Welcome, Reverend Susan. Now, friends, if you are willing, please rise and greet your neighbors and welcome our visitors. Sit down, but please remain standing for our opening hymn. Here we are gathered. It's hymn number 360 on your hymn numbers. Here we are gathered.
First Unitarian Universalist Church of Richmond. It is my great honor and joy to be with you on this homecoming Sunday as we gather here and in so many places in this beloved community. It is also my great privilege to be here on a day when we are celebrating and honoring the Reverend Jean Pupke, a dear colleague, mentor, and leader who was and remains beloved across our association, at the UUA, and to me and my family. Through the presidential campaign, which you all were so much a part of and supporting Jean, I just want to share that I did not know Jean well at all, only by her name before that, and I grew to love her and have the deepest respect and admiration for her and her ministry, as well as for Regina, and for the care that you all showed my family and the ways we grew together. It is very meaningful for me to be here with all of you today. I'm also honored, so honored to be here alongside my colleague and my friend, the Reverend Sherman Logan, your acting senior minister. I am so grateful to serve with Sherman on the National Unitarian Universalist Association Board of Trustees. And the gifts that Sherman brings to our ministry and to this church, his open and generous heart, his incredible pastoral presence and deep caring, and his deep commitment and spiritual depth are a blessing that nurtures seeds that you all are growing together in this beautiful ministry. I am grateful to know you, Sherman, as a colleague and a friend, and I think that you are one of the finest, most caring ministers in our association. And I know how fortunate this community is to be blessed and have been blessed for so many years with your ministry. The Indian poet of the 5th century, Kalidasa, offers us these words, which speak to this day. He writes, "Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the truths, all the verities and realities of our existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision, but today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day." We light our chalice this morning in gratitude for all who came before us, with trust and hope in all who will come after us, and in recognition of the wider family of faith that we are a part, and all of the UU communities across our association who are gathering and lighting a chalice, opening their hearts and spirits to one another and to the great mystery and miracle of life.
And now it is my distinct honor to invite my state senator, Ghazali Hashmi, and Delegate Betsy Carr to come to the chancel to make a very special presentation.
Good morning. It's a deep honor and a deep privilege to join you here this morning to honor our beloved friend, Reverend Jean Pupke. I thank Reverend Sherman and Reverend Susan and all of the members of the congregation for providing us this opportunity. Reverend Pupke grew to be a dear friend of mine. Anytime that I visited this congregation, she certainly made me feel at home. I really felt that this was a spiritual community that was home to me, and for that, I'm forever grateful for her warmth, her generosity, and the true love, the sincerity of love that she has shown me. And I'd like to read the Senate resolution, which is a copy also of the House resolution that was presented in both chambers. This is Senate Joint Resolution number 144, celebrating the life of Reverend Jean Marie Pupke, agreed to by the Senate February 24th, 2022, and agreed to by the House of Delegates February 28th. Whereas the Reverend Jean Marie Pupke, esteemed senior minister of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Richmond and a beloved member of the Richmond community, died on February 9th, 2022. And whereas after college, Jean Pupke joined the Sisters of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, but left after 4 years and diverged from her Catholic faith soon thereafter. And while attending graduate school at the University of Missouri, Jean Pupke joined Die Makers Incorporated, a small tool die company, as a consultant, but ultimately rose to the rank of Vice President of Administration and also worked as Chief Operating Officer at Batdorf and Bronson Coffee Roasters in Olympia, Washington. And whereas Jean Pupke was called to the ministry, graduating from Meadville Lombard Theological School before assuming a part-time pastorship with the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Central Oregon in Bend, Oregon, and serving as a growth minister for the church's Pacific Northwest District. And whereas Jean Pupke became pastor of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Richmond in 2006, and since that time, the congregation has grown to be one of the largest in the denomination. And whereas emphasizing the recognition of members' religious diversity, Jean Pupke became a leader of the denomination nationwide, serving as a 4-year term on the Unitarian Universalist Association Board of Trustees. Whereas Jean Pupke has counseled many aspiring ministers as a ministerial internship supervisor and as a member of the Lombard Theological School Board of Trustees, allowing her spiritual guidance to radiate beyond her community. And as a founding member and a director of the Unitarian Universalist Legislative Ministry in the Commonwealth, Jean Pupke advocated tirelessly in support of racial justice, women's, LGBTQ+, and youth rights. And Jean Pupke often delivered the morning prayer at the General Assembly, providing its members with a moment of reflection and contemplation at the outset of their day. And whereas Jean Pupke will be fondly remembered and dearly missed by her spouse of 28 years, Regina, her mother, Ruth, and numerous other family members and friends, now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of Virginia, the House of Delegates concurring, that the General Assembly hereby note with great sadness the loss of the Reverend Jean Marie Pupke, senior pastor of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Richmond, whose loving compassion, integrity, and commitment to her faith have touched countless lives. And be it resolved further that the clerk of the Senate prepare a copy of this resolution for presentation to the family of the Reverend Jean Marie Pupke as an expression of the General Assembly's respect for her memory.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm delighted to be here also representing the House of Delegates. We know that something is important not only when the House and the Senate agree, but also when the item is initiated in both houses, and that's what happened this time. So I'm very happy to present the same resolution from the House. Again, I had the great pleasure of knowing Jean and seeing her at the General Assembly, seeing her here, seeing her in the community. Obviously, her loss is just so tremendous to us, but we celebrate all what her presence has brought us and the legacy that it leaves us. Thank you so much for what each of you are doing in the community, following her model, and thank you for having us here this morning.
Thank you, Senator Hasme and Delegate Carr and Reverend Jean. I love you.
I'd like to invite all of the young ones and the young at heart to come forward for a time for all ages. Come on, don't be shy. I'll wait for you. Awesome. Okay, so there was a rhyme that I learned. I grew up Baptist, which is a Christian denomination, and I learned a rhyme that has a little finger motions with it that, I don't know, you all might not necessarily know, but probably some of the people here know, and it went like this. And if you know it, you can do it with me. Here is the church. Here is the steeple. Open the doors and see all the people. And you did this really, really cool thing where instead of making a fist like this with your fingers on top, your fingers were inside. Can everybody practice that? So you kind of put your fingers together like this with the people below, and then you close your hand around it. So we're going to flip the script, okay? So shake it out. We're going to make a UU version of this. You ready? Okay. So starting with your fingers out, here are the people. Here are the people, focused and strong. Building community where all belong. And you can imagine this is a chalice, bound together in love. Let's do it one more time, okay? You ready? All right. Here are the people, focused and strong. Building community where all belong, bound together in love. Thank you all so much for your participation. Yeah. And now we have another treat. So any of you children who've been practicing with the youth music ensemble, you can slide over and do your thing.
How did the Mexicans eat pizza rolls? Why does nitrogen catch fire so easily? Can I go to the bathroom? Why do parents go on their phones so much? What's the meaning of life? Why do trees take so long to talk to each other? How was space created? How does everything exist? You kids are genuinely awesome, thriving on diversity. Open to the wisdom of all cultures, building our theology. When friends ask what we believe in, we may seem a bit confused. That's because we're still deciding. We are
Good morning. My name is Ford Scott. I'm here to tell you about the October Share the Plate recipient. It's the Fulton Montessori School, which is a nonprofit school providing affordable, high-quality childhood education to the working families of Greater Fulton, the East End, and surrounding neighborhoods. The school accepts enrollees from ages 16 months up to 6.5 years. They place a special emphasis on serving low-income and BIPOC families and offer sliding scale rates to everyone. The school was established in 2018 and was housed in the Calvary United Methodist Church, no affiliation, on Williamsburg Road until it moved to its own location across the street in August. I volunteered there several times, helping them get ready for their move and then moving across the street, so that's the UU connection there. This month, Share the Plate donations will go towards the school's big goal. They're building an outdoor space that is inviting, educational, and playful. They will also build a fence out in front of the school to take away some of the noise and activity from Williamsburg Road. And they'll add climbing structures, wood chips, playhouses, etc. in the back play yard. The primary goal of these efforts is to allow year-round outdoor learning, which will focus on STEM activities. I've been reading every week, and I don't know if this gets repetitive, but I'm reading a comment from one of the parents that sends their children to the school. We would not be able to send our kids to a Montessori school if it weren't for Fulton sliding scale tuition, and I'm also able to be in school full-time because of it. The staff of the school are also invested in the children and their experience, not just with learning, but also with their interactions with peers, their sense of self, and their relationship with the world around them. The school really embraces and fosters their natural curiosity and desire to learn and explore by letting them work on activities that they feel drawn to, rather than forcing a strict curriculum, which I really appreciate. And we appreciate your donations today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ford. Look at the screens for ways to give, and the ushers are passing the basket if you want to give something here in person. as we enter into this time of reflection, meditation, and prayer, hear the words from the Reverend Mark Bellatini. You, silence, are the ground on which we build. The fragile sandcastle of every spoken word. You, silence, are quicksand where curses and cockiness and arrogance find their end. You, silence, are the strands of the beach we stroll where loneliness turns into solitude. And our small heartbeats join the much vaster heartbeat of tide and wave. You, silence, are the hands in which the pearl of the universe, grown around the painful grain of human suffering, rests in heartbreaking beauty. You, silence, are the wide, bright delta until the river of this prayer fans out before it flows into the indigo deep, quiet, dark, and lovely. Come, silence, feel this moment. Spirit of life, love, and compassion. God of mysteries beyond naming, we come and welcome the presence of the holy in this place as we are together today for a time of prayer. And we are grateful for those moments when we experience the incredible splendor of being alive, for morning stillness where all creation seems to stare, shake sleep away, and awaking to a fresh day of promise. We're thankful for the weekly gifts of worship together, where words and silence and songs spill into our spirits, bringing us a taste of abundance life. Center our hearts and remind us again that we sense the presence when clutter of our minds is clear and when the simplicity of heart is with us. O Holy One, we seek to be honest with you and with ourselves. We are tucked away some things in the compartments of our minds where we replay anger, hurt, and resentment. We cling to them because we do not know how to let them go. Yet we know that they are seeping joy and purpose for our lives. Empower us to release them as we trust that you're clearing out anything in the obstacles in our lives. We pause to be still. We think of those who need your compassion, for those who are enduring a health crisis, for those who have reached the end of their resources. We admit it's too easy to be complacent, so we ask that you open our hearts to the suffering in our world today. Remember those people whose lives have been torn apart by violence, those who live in the city of Richmond, those across the country and in our world. And we lift with open hearts, we lift each one into the safety of your grace and ask you to hold them there. And so in this community of faith, when we leave the sanctuary today, we pray that we might be people of courage and hope. Help us stand in faith together as we pray in the name of all that's called holy. May this be so. Amen. Ashe. Blessed be. And will you please rise in body or in spirit and let us sing hymn 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire.
is one of my favorite hymns. To all of you, the members, the friends, the leaders, the staff of First UU, I want you to know how important you are to our faith, to Unitarian Universalism, and to the UUA. You all are a leader and an inspiration in our movement. I know that this was modeled and nurtured by Reverend Jean and her love of this faith and commitment to the UUA, her service on the UUA Board of Trustees, her commitment to mentorship of colleagues around the association, her clear and powerful anti-racist leadership. And I know that this has also been something that has been a shared ministry and a shared commitment to denominational leadership, evidenced by your president, Denise Rhymes, who also has served as vice moderator, which is, like vice chair of the UUA Board of Trustees, currently serves on the UUA Presidential Search Committee, working to find my successor, and through Reverend Sherman's leadership and your support of his leadership on the UUA Board of Trustees, and through your sustained generosity to the UUA. And I didn't even mention Annette Marquis. I didn't mention Tyler Coles and your nurturing Tyler as a covenanted community minister. And I know there are others of you in this room who have helped lead this congregation in ways that inspire and empower and are an example to our other UU congregations. So I just want to say how grateful I am to you. I want to say that on behalf of the UUA. I want to thank you for being an honor-level giving congregation, offering your full commitment to the UUA. Your generosity and that sustained generosity over time is what allows the UUA to show up for all of your sibling congregations, for you in this time of transition, but for all of your sibling congregations in their times of need, of crisis, and of transition. You all make that possible. You help strengthen Unitarian Universalism all over this country, and through your generosity, you are making a difference in congregations that you will never visit, and in the lives of UU leaders and UU members like yourselves, but who you will never meet. This is the way we hold one another in covenant and strengthen our faith across our association. None of this happens because of a minister. This commitment to wider leadership is a shared ministry. It happens because of the commitment of lay leaders and the commitment of ministers, that shared vision. And that's happening, I want to say it's not just about the UUA. You all offer that shared wider leadership in the city of Richmond, as well as in the wider UUA. So I just want to acknowledge how that grows from a shared ministry and a shared vision that what you are about and your mission is not just about what happens to the people who are already part of this community, right? It's a commitment to our neighbors, the neighbors across Richmond, as well as your neighbor UUs across our association. So I just want to bring, on behalf of our whole faith and personally from me, my deep gratitude to each and every one of you. Again, it is a great privilege to be here and to worship with you. And friends, what a time this is. What a time this is we are living in. For more than a year now as UUA president, I have been talking about these times that we are living in as liminal times. So liminal means a time in between. Liminal is when what has been is no longer and what is ahead is still unclear. And that very much feels like the time we are living in. The pandemic upended so much of our lives. And yet what is next is still unfolding, still being imagined, and still needing advocates to fight for a future where all can thrive. Now, I'm mindful that you all here are no strangers to transition, and that you, like many of our congregations, are experiencing multiple layers of transition, right? There's so many ways that we're all navigating what comes next in this, what should I say, not quite after pandemic, right? And you're also in this final time of your search and call process, leading to the vote to call Reverend Sherman Logan. We are all learning, all of us as human beings across this globe, to live and adapt in the in-between. We know from these last several years both the challenges and the losses and also the possibilities of these times, and the lessons we have learned are necessary to bring forward, because in truth, we are still in the midst and still in need of so much change. This is true in our congregations, where the ways in which people connect to religious community has broadened and shifted in ways we couldn't have imagined 3 years ago, right? And new patterns are still developing. And it's true in our country as we continue to witness systems and practices break down with devastating impacts. From healthcare and infrastructure, to basic goods and services, to the economy, to democracy. Our system has shown tremendous weaknesses, weaknesses that impact vulnerable communities most acutely. Human and civil rights are being rolled back at an alarming rate. Attacks against trans people, communities of color, and women are growing. And the impacts of climate change are increasingly devastating communities across our country and across the world. These realities fundamentally reflect a society that has put profit and power over people's lives and people's dignity and worth. Now, here's the thing. We are all living in times of change. And in times of change and disruption, there is a risk. There is always a risk that fear and anxiety will dominate and lead people to cling more tightly to what has been, to a status quo that has never served the cause of human need or the values of justice and equity. But here's the thing, my friends, we are Unitarian Universalists, and we are not a people of fear. We are a people of hope. We are a people of possibility, of imagination, of commitment. We are a people of faith. We are a people made for this time. And I witness this in so many places across our faith, from congregations continuing to partner and share resources with each other, to the energy and volunteers of UU the Vote. Just yesterday, a group of UUs, we called 2,724 voters in the state of Wisconsin, making sure people knew how to get registered, making sure they knew how to vote. Right? And last year, in 2020, UUs contacted 3 million voters in the 2020 election, right? Because we have to stand against this growing authoritarian movement across our country. And just like we had to work to get rid of Sheriff Arpaio, we got to work to get rid of those who are rooted in fascism, rooted in authoritarianism. We have to fight for a multiracial democracy. So I'm seeing that in UU congregations. I'm seeing it in congregations that are helping fund and usher people who need abortions from Texas to New Mexico to make sure that they have both money and spiritual care and transportation to get the health services they need. And I see it in our congregations every Sunday that are welcoming and loving places for our trans kids and their families. And I see it right here in Richmond, in all the ways that you are a welcoming community, with your justice-centered, anti-racist ministry, with your Richmond pledge that you have long been embracing this ministry. And I see it in the ministry that you are building with Reverend Sherman Logan. And so when so much seems uncertain, it matters that we lean even more deeply into what we know to be true. The life-saving message of our theology, the promise and the possibility and the life-affirming practices of the beloved community. This is how we save ourselves. Now, I want to tell you a story because I love telling stories, make things concrete for us, right? So there's this wonderful parable from Denon Perry, who was a writer and a humanitarian and organizer for peace. And he uses the metaphor of a trapeze artist to describe the experience of living in transitional times. This is called The Parable of the Trapeze, and it's from Perry's book, Warriors of the Heart. He writes, most of the time, I spend my life hanging on for dear life to my trapeze bar of the moment. It carries me along at a certain steady rate of swing, and I have the feeling that I am in control of my life. But every once in a while, I see another trapeze bar swinging toward me. And each time it happens, I pray that I won't have to let go of my old bar completely before I grab the new one. But in my knowing place, I know that I must totally release my grasp on my old bar. And for some moment in time, I must hurtle across space before I can grab onto the new bar. Each time, I'm filled with terror. It doesn't matter that in all my previous hurdles across the void of unknowing, I've always made it. I am each time afraid that I will miss, but I do it anyway. Perhaps this is the essence of what the mystics call the faith experience. No guarantees, no net, no insurance policy, but you do it anyway. Because somehow to keep holding on to that old bar is no longer on the list of alternatives. So for an eternity that can last a microsecond or 1,000 lifetimes, I soar across the void of the past is gone and the future is not yet here. It's called transition, and I've come to believe that this transition is the only place where real change occurs. I mean real change, not the pseudo change that just lasts until the next time my old buttons get pushed, but real change. How's that for a powerful metaphor for the time we're living in, right? Hurtling across the void. And a good reminder that change, needed change, is possible, maybe only possible, in these transition times. So there's a couple of nuggets of wisdom that I especially want to draw out of this story that are helpful as we navigate these times. First, as Perry says, as much as we want to stay holding on to that current bar until the next one's safely in our hands, wouldn't that be great? It just doesn't work that way. We have to totally release our grasp on that old bar. We have to be able to let go in order to take a leap of faith and grab for that bar not quite in reach. And this is not easy. I want to be clear about that. This is not easy. For in times of change, there's a real tension. In fact, in that void, there's often the reality of living between longing for what was, what we knew as stable and familiar, and then a longing for that opportunity to imagine something new, new forms, new practices, new ways of being, new possibilities in our lives and community. And this is so alive in our congregations today. People often ask me, what do you see as UUA president? What's happening across our congregations? What do we need to do? The pandemic upended so much of how we gather. And as we navigate what comes next, there's tension within our communities. Some of us know we can't go back, right? Some of us know we can't go back. We don't even want to go back. We know something different is needed, and we desperately want to know what comes next. Others long for what was, because so many of us are attached to the way church was when we first came and the reasons it was meaningful to us. That's real. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's a longing for a bar that's no longer possible. So both these things are actually longings for certainty, when truth is we're still in transition, right? Can you hold that? Both of these, wanting to know what comes next, wanting to hold on what was. These are both longings for certainty. But embracing the possibility and creativity of this time, using it to really grow and learn and experiment, means willing to stay in the unknown. So Denon Perry ends his parable with these words: I have a sneaking suspicion that the transition zone is the only real thing, and the bars are the illusions that we dream up to avoid the void where the real change, the real growth occurs. Yes, with all the pain and fear and feelings of being out of control that can, but not necessarily, accompany transitions, they are still the most alive, most growth-filled, passionate, expansive moments in our lives. Transforming our need to grab that new bar means allowing ourselves to dwell in the only place where change can really happen. It can be terrifying. It can also be enlightening in the true sense of the word. Hurtling through the void, we just might learn to fly. Perry is speaking to the possibility and the hope that is present in these transition times. And I'm not trying to move too quickly to the next thing to offer certainty and stability. There's power in hanging out in the in-between. And I don't mean to suggest that that's easy. I want to be really clear. Hanging out in the in-between, that's not easy. And guess what? Life right now is not easy. We all face, as you know so deeply and personally, that sometimes we are forced into transitions we never wanted, losses that we could not imagine, times when the bars we were grateful to be swinging on simply disappeared. It can be terrifying and painful. But there's another gem in this story. When the trapeze artist lets go of that bar, they do not free fall. There is momentum carrying them as it carries us. What has been, what has nurtured us and been a source of strength and faith, it doesn't go away when we let go of that bar. It remains a source of strength, a wind at our backs, just in a new way. And it's that fear of free fall that keeps us from letting go, clinging to something that can no longer be. But our shared connection, the strength of our ancestors, our rituals of songs and poetry, our faith, our calling, our spiritual imagination, they all propel us forward. We give each other courage from our history, from the foundations of who we are, and from our interdependence with each other. It's an important reminder that while this story imagines a single trapeze artist, I don't believe that any of us are swinging alone. I know it can feel that way. That's right, it can feel that way. I'm almost done. I take the feedback. We are on these bars together, dear ones, navigating this transition, the challenges and the possibility that it offers. And yes, the anxiety and the grief that comes with it. But we're in it together. Ultimately, the lesson here is about learning to get comfortable with uncertainty. We can spend all our time trying to answer questions we don't have answers to, or we can just get to the work that's right before us, of caring and building the ministry with the people right here with us, and answering the needs of the community around us, of living our mission and our theology in ways that respond to the present moment with courage and resilience. And yes, we have been in liminal times for too many years now, and so many bars which we relied on disappeared. And naturally, we want to get to that next bar. And I'm thrilled that in your personal case, you're going to get to one of those next bars in a few weeks, right? As you have your congregational meeting on December 11th and close your search process and decide your final decision on this vote to call the Reverend Sherman Logan. But once you've crossed that bar, I invite you together to remember that we are still living in a threshold moment, a time where so much change for justice and humanity and the earth and the future is needed. So don't just get settled in, right? Don't just get settled in. Keep about the work that the world needs, because we need religious communities that are actively living in this in-between time, willing to remain unsettled because so much is unsettled, and leaning into and reimagining what prophetic, life-saving, justice-making, democratic ministry and community can be, and knowing faithfully that our values, our vision, and yes, each other will carry us forward. May it be so. May you feel that wind at your backs. May you live for love and justice and lead with that spirit in your community. May it be so, and amen.
I think we had church this morning. And from my Baptist tradition, after church, we had supper and a meal. And so after the service is over, please join us for a community meal as we continue to celebrate homecoming. We have a photo booth over there so you can take some pretty pictures. And we ask that parents with children and those who have mobility issues, please go first, and the rest wait for those folks to get their meals. There's plenty of food out there, so don't worry about it. Thank you very much, Reverend Susan, for your wonderful message, and thank everyone who participated in this wonderful service today. I'm at home. And thank you all for making me feel at home. So our closing words are from Cornel West. We need courage to question the power that be, the courage to be impatient with evil and patient with people. In many instances, we will be stepping out on nothing and just hoping to land on something. But that's the struggle. To live is to wrestle with despair, yet never allow despair to have the last word.
Spirit of life, faith of those who came before and dreamed before us, courage of our ancestors, love that is the motive force in our lives. Keep us true to that which we hold most dear, always calling us forward in love and in liberation. Blessed be, amen. Go in peace and give back love.
Peace be your life's only way, and peace be your life's only way, and peace be again, side by side, may love
sing our closing hymn, 131.